Beddington.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise today to speak to Bill 208, Psycho-Educational Assessment Access Act. So just start off by looking at what does this bill do? It's a really straightforward, really easy ask that we're making of the government on this bill. And just as a refresher, because I had a mum in my office the other day who's going through the process of finding a psycho-ed assessment for her boys. And she knew about this bill, and we talked about it, and she asked me, she said, member for Calgary-Beddington, why? Yeah, she said that.
It was awkward, but
it was awkward, but it was parliamentary appropriate. So, member for Calgary-Beddington, she said, how is this bill going to help me? What is this bill going to do to help? I don't see here where you're asking the government for more money, right? And so I had to go through this process of what is a private member's bill, what can we do in a private member's bill, and we know that we are limited. We know that we're not able to ask the government to spend more money, even when we know that, in fact, what the government needs to do to address this issue is to spend more money providing public psycho-ed assessments. So we do what we can with this bill, which is to ask for the creation of a committee, the School Psychology Services Committee. And when we're looking at the mandate of this committee, it's to do that jurisdictional scan. So let's look at what's working in other provinces. Is it working well in other jurisdictions? How can we bring that here to Alberta? Looking at things like training and support that could be provided to teachers to address classroom complexity. So we know that this government is choosing to fund students at the lowest level in the country. If you talk to teachers, what you will hear from them, even more than what I hear from them anyways, even more than what I hear about class size, what I hear about is classroom complexity. Because what's happening in classrooms right now is really getting to be too much for any one teacher to manage. You know, you've got kids that run the entire spectrum. You've got English language learners. You've got kids who are managing their autism spectrum disorder, their ADHD. You've got kids who are gifted. These kids are all in the same classroom, and a teacher's trying to manage this, and honestly, it's too much for teachers, is the point that we're getting to now. So we're asking for this committee to look at, to study, and then to come back to the minister and table a report in the legislature so that we can see what's going on. I did want to mention briefly, because again, when I've been talking to folks who aren't in the know, their first question to me was, what the heck is a psycho-educational assessment? It's a fair question. Because it's more than what the minister just spoke about was some specific types of screenings. So literacy and numeracy screenings. Well, a psycho-ed assessment is much more than just assessing for that narrow range of academic performance. So a psycho-ed is basically you've got a psychologist, and they're going to collect information about a student's functioning from a variety of sources. So yes, they're going to review school records. You're also going to have really long and detailed conversation with the parents of the child. And there is a part of it that is standardized tests and observing, but it's about so much more than how children perform on those standardized tests. A big part of psycho-ed assessments is about assessing the process that a child goes through in the course of that standardized test. How do they solve problems? How do they approach things like puzzles? Where are they getting hung up on things? What things do they complete easily? What things are causing challenges for them? So it's really more, and it goes beyond that too, so because it's your academic, but it's looking at your behavioral, communication abilities, social emotional communicative abilities, adaptive functioning. It's a lot more than just assessing a child's ability to perform on a reading test, or on something like a simple addition subtraction. It's much, much more than that. Because a psycho-ed assessment is looking to identify really one of three things. It's looking to identify an intellectual disability. Now that's an intellectual disability as defined by the DSM. And when we're looking at intellectual disabilities, you have to be presenting some challenges with reasoning, problem solving, abstract thinking, planning. And then it goes on to look at how can those challenges affect daily living abilities, right? So that's things like your ability to communicate, how do you do self-care, is there a capacity to manage money? Basically, are you going to be able to function independently in the community? This is something that a lot of us take for granted. So it's looking for intellectual disabilities. It's looking for diagnoses. So this is where we find diagnoses for autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, general anxiety disorder would fall in there too. And the third thing that it can test for is giftedness. Now, why do parents want a psycho-ed assessment? Why is the literacy and numeracy screening not enough? It's because in order to have your child's unique learning needs met, you need something called an IPP. And an IPP is an individualized program plan. It is a learning plan specific to the learner. And there are a lot of things that you can't get in a school if you don't have an IPP. So you have to go through this psycho-ed process to get the IPP so that the learning needs of your child, so that there is a mandate for the school to address those needs. The minister had commented that his family went through this. My family went through this process too, the psycho-ed assessment. My oldest was just a bright and beautiful girl at home, lively, quick mind, just a real delight to be around. She was coming home from school at the end of the day, every day, just like emotionally distraught. She was not having good days at school. But what happened to her is what happens to a lot of, especially female children too, because what was happening is she wasn't acting it out, okay? So at school, she was buttoning it all up inside of her. She was being the good girl, she was being the good student, but we knew that she was horribly unhappy. Her social skills weren't that great. And that was the crux of a lot of the issues with her. We went through this psycho-ed process, and I will say thank goodness for my partner's good public sector job, because we were a single income family at the time, and the cost of this test was mind-boggling to us. We went to the school, we identified there was an issue, the school let us know this was the process, this psycho-ed assessment, and then they let us know that there were 12 kids on the list at our school, and they would likely get one testing done that year. Now, I know my community really well. I know that a lot of people at the school have a lot more need than my family. Like I mentioned, we had that good, we only had one income, but it was that good public sector income, good benefits. We were able to take my daughter and have her go through the process. We were able to have it covered by our benefits. There's no way we could have afforded to pay for it out of pocket. But it's a good thing we did go and have it done, because the testing did turn up as giftedness. We were able to move her into a specialized program within the public system, and now she comes home every day and she's that bright and beautiful girl because her needs are being met at school, right? And that's what the psycho-ed assessment is about. It's about meeting those needs at school. I had a mom, I think I mentioned at the start, who's in my office this week. She's got 2 boys, twins, bless, I can't imagine. And both of them, autism spectrum disorder and also severe global delays. She is a single mom, And the lowest cost provider that she is able to find, it's $3,000 for this assessment. She can't afford it. The only reason it's going to happen, she's had to go to her family to ask them to do this, and she needs to do it because even though her kids are at a school that has a program,